Hello, I'm David Hunt, and welcome to this show all about the arts. My guest today, he's so important. He was honoured with an AM in 2021, the Queen's Birthday honour list, and the amount of awards he's won over the years. I just heard a moment ago that he's won a Green Room Award, but we'll get to that a little bit later because it's quite interesting how that's happened, the photos over my shoulder. Very involved in Melbourne business and the arts community. We'll cover that because what he has done for this city is amazing. And a huge supporter of the arts, as I said, and again, in a massive way. That's why I've got him on the art show today. He is part of this town as an individual, as like managing general manager of the Sofitel on Collins in Melbourne. But what he did behind the scenes there, encouraging the arts. There's always a bloody exhibition on or performance on that he organised over his time. So yes, he was a GM. They kicked him out. No, they didn't kick him out. He's just retired. But guess what? They won't let him go. Accor have said, no, you're not going anywhere, bud. We're creating a role for you. So he's now Accor's Australasian Arts Ambassador. Excuse me, we've got to talk about that. And why wouldn't you hold on to this precious person in Melbourne's art scene? Clive Scott, welcome.
Thank you. Precious? I don't think that's a word to describe me.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
If you're not precious.
So, where did it all start? You were in the hotel business. How long ago?
I was altogether. I was in the hotel business over 50 years.
Wow,
a long time. And so, where did the arts start? Probably the arts started with living overseas with mum and dad. And
whereabouts?
We lived in New Guinea. We lived in Thailand.
Wow.
And the coolest place, and when I say coolest, meaning the lowest temperature, was often museums and art galleries.
Hey!
So mum and I'd go in there, and mum would have a tea or a coffee, and I'd go wandering in the art gallery. So I got to see a lot of art at a young age.
Yeah.
And also I experienced in those countries a lot of entertainment. So you saw a lot of local dancing,
yep.
A lot of local theatre. And I suppose, I grew up in the suburbs of Melbourne, and mum and dad were involved in Williamstown Light Opera, that type of thing.
Wow, great. How long were you at Sofitel on Collins?
18 years.
18 years,
yeah,
wow.
long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
And they wanted you to move on, around the world to different other hotels. But you always said no.
No, I went and I did assignments in different places for the company.
Yep.
But I think they realised in a city like Melbourne, you are part of the city. So don't move this person because they're part of the city. People know them.
Yep.
And then after a time, you are so well known in the city, in business and arts, in all circles, that people, you just wouldn't move that person, just leave them alone and let them get on with their job.
But you really went out of your way, though, to support the arts, didn't you? You really have done a spectacular job, and you're so loved because of it.
Well, it's very interesting. When we started, we sat down in the lounge of the hotel, and the hotel was sponsoring some things in the arts, very limited.
Yep.
And we sort of decided, okay, are we going to do this or not do it? And we wrote down on post-it notes all the dance companies, all the opera companies. I think at the time there were like 6 opera companies, and then all the theatre companies and everything. And we basically said, okay, what will we sponsor? And we started off in a limited way. And we had a couple of criteria. Can we help them?
Yep.
Do they want help? Do we like them, and do they like us? We don't have any cash. We're basically, it's in kind.
Yep.
And really, can we get involved with them, right? And that's how we and we'd meet people, and quite honestly, there were leading arts companies in Melbourne who said, no, we don't want you as a sponsor.
Hey.
Right? Yeah, and there were others that embraced us and then really were wanting to know us as people and wanting to get to know us, and we got to know them, and we became sort of more involved than normal sponsors in what they were doing. And one criteria I always had was that we would go to the performances.
Yep.
So one of the first things I turned up to in Melbourne, a long time ago, I go up and I say, I'm here to get my tickets, etc. Who are you? I said, I'm the general manager of the Sofitel. And they said, really? What are you doing here? I said, well, I'm one of your sponsors. Really? And you've come to the show? Yes. Right? Oh, really? Like this.
Wow.
And they had to hunt around to find my tickets because they hadn't allocated them because sponsors didn't turn up.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I think we try to get involved as much as possible. And I always said that if we're giving tickets to people, right, they've got to go.
Yep.
And if I gave tickets to staff
Yep.
in the hotel, they had to go. And if you didn't go, then you get your cousin to go because they're not to be an empty seat.
Empty seat.
Yeah, no empty seats because they've worked hard to do the show, so we have to support it.
Yeah. But the wonderful thing is that has grown so much now, and you very much are the arts hotel, and like the NGV. I go to the media days there. You're always there. You're always. Well, I usually have to sit next to you.
Yeah.
And you say, "Come sit with me," and of course I want to. But like you're always, as you said, you were going to the shows, but and then all of a sudden the name comes up on as a sponsor.
Yeah.
And that must be so rewarding for you, all the organisations you've pulled together along the way.
Yeah, look, we've helped wherever we can. I mean, something like the NGV, National Gallery of Victoria, literally in this city, you have to be involved in it because without a doubt, it's one of the greatest galleries in the world.
And when we're at those media days, people from around the world who are there for their exhibition say it's an honour to be involved with the NGV, one of the great galleries of the world.
Yeah. But in reality, what we're doing is mixing with our customers also, because we were putting the Sofitel, we weren't being a building just sitting in the middle of the city. We were taking the hotel out into the city and meeting our customers in the arts institutions, which that's where they were. They were sitting there watching the performances. They were walking around looking at the art. They were listening to the music. And, we knew that, customers in hotels, especially elite hotels, they like arts. They like culture. So that's where they were. So we just went looking for them.
But then you've taken it to the other levels as well, with where the hotel does a lot, and especially with visual artists. Like you've got a lot of walls in that hotel, and you give artists an opportunity to display their work. Tell our viewers.
Well, it's interesting that putting, and a lot of galleries have learnt this over time, putting art into a hotel and then showing it to somebody is a little bit more like it's hanging in your home than it is on a white wall in a gallery. Right? And sitting and having a coffee and looking at this art on the wall, a lot of our galleries have sold work. Now, we're not a gallery selling a lot of work in the hotel, but we are displaying it in a very different way. And for example, the wall that you have in Sophie's lounge there is one of the biggest walls in Victoria to display art on. It sort of rivals some of the walls in the NGV because it's so big and so high and so long.
And then all of a sudden you get up to the 35th floor, which is, like you just go there because you want to look at the view of the city from the toilets and the magnificent cocktail bar and restaurants that are there. But it's all the art's there as well, and it's an exhibition per se.
And don't forget, in a hotel you have a lot of customers coming back. So what you're doing is you're showing them something different. Sometimes very, very different. I mean, we had a couch in the lobby once that when you approached the couch it purred at you, but when you sat on it for a couple of minutes it farted. Right? And that got a lot of reaction for the customers.
That sounds like so much fun.
That was from the show called Experimenta. Which is all electronic type of art. They also had one which was called The Shy Picture, and it was hanging on the wall, and when you approached it all the characters ran out of the picture because they were shy. So I mean it's just giving your regular customers, right, something different to look at, and they do notice. I mean, if anything, if anybody thinks your customer doesn't notice your business, they notice everything. They know more about your business sometimes than you do. So they know more about the hotel sometimes than you do. And they really notice that you changed the art and you did something different.
And you're doing something different along the way, like the farting chair. I love that, and I love that one where they'll run out. It's very Harry Potter in a way, isn't it? But also the fact is that you include that part of town, which is called the Paris end of Collins Street. I remember, it was only a couple of years back now, but it was before COVID, one of the fashion designers who was like at the end of their reign, and you actually had a beautiful evening there, and like her clothes were on display, and it was a gorgeous night of memories and performance. Who was that?
That's Shirley Keon.
Yeah,
and she hasn't retired. She kept going.
Right.
And we did a retrospective of her work.
Yeah.
And in the room there would have been 20 ladies that turned up in garments which were over 20 years old, which she'd made for them.
Yep.
And she's making from unique fabric, one off, and she's making for individual pieces, hand cut, hand sewn, all measured for ladies, etc.
Yeah.
And Shirley is just really, she's a haute couture designer in Melbourne. And beautiful work. Yeah.
And how did you meet her? As I said,
she's our neighbour.
She's your neighbour.
She's our neighbour. We were a local.
Yeah.
I call her a neighbour and she calls us the local. Yeah, she lives in the building next door.
Yeah.
And always has lived in that building.
Yeah.
And when her husband Philip was alive, Shirley would make the clothing, and he made all the jewellery. He was a jewellery maker, and it was all paste jewellery, fake jewellery, but very, very beautiful and over the top.
Yeah.
So you'll see Shirley around, glamorously dressed and big pieces of jewellery, then you'll recognise her straight away.
Well, at your retirement farewell that I was there, I noticed her, and I've interviewed her on my art show on Joy, and I went over and said, and I was going to explain. She said, "David, I know who you are." And I thought, because it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that, and she went, we love Clive. He's so and she's and the fact that night was such a great night for her, wasn't it? Where you did the retrospect for her.
The interesting, Shirley says she loves Clive. Actually, as in sponsoring or partnering with all those people, we ended up loving them, and a lot of them now are our friends. And the other thing in the arts world you notice is that, and this happened actually this morning, that I went to a meeting with an arts organisation, and I walked in and I looked at the two ladies I'm meeting. I'm thinking, I don't recognise you from this theatre company. And then they both explained, oh no, you know me from Chunky Move Dancing, you know me from Bell Shakespeare, because that's where I used to work before. Yeah. Because in the business, a lot of people are moving around, and you come across them in the growth in their careers and moving somewhere else, which is also great because you start to know all the people.
But Clive, it's also fantastic that you and the hotel support the arts, because we all know what a struggle it is for the arts, and the money is getting harder to get hold of. So organisations like yours is a godsend, because you open that door a little bit more for the arts.
Yeah, one of the proudest things that happened about 5 years ago was these people asked to see me, right? And after about half an hour talking, I said, "Oh, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, what do you really want?" They said, "We just want to borrow your logo to put in our submission to the government to get funding." I said, "What for?" Because we think if you have your logo on it, we'll have credibility.
Did they get?
I lent it to them, and they got their funding.
Brilliant.
I don't know if it was because of the logo or not, but they got their funding. But there is funding there, right?
Yep.
And
it's hard work, though.
It's hard work for a small organisation, but some people just keep applying, and yes, you'll get funding. I think the thing is not to give up.
Yep.
Right, there is funding there.
Yep.
And then do the performances so people see what you can do, right?
Yeah.
And keep it going.
Well, and somebody that I know you have a lot to do with, Mora Finnegan.
Oh yeah, Finney, Kane and Smith. Yes.
Yep, and that's where you got your Green Room Award, because you went up on tell the story.
Well, we put straight after COVID, it was actually between two lockdowns, I think. We put Mora in a show in the hotel because we had empty rooms, and her entertainers hadn't worked for a year and a half, had no money, etc. So I said, "Oh, let's do a show like this." So we did a show in the hotel, and one night there was the lady who did a couple of cameos in the show wasn't there. And Mora wanders past about an hour before the show starts and says, "Oh, do you want to do the cameo? Right? You decide if you want to do it with your pants on, your pants off," because technically she went on this body piece with a little jacket, etc.
Right.
So I took my pants off and just put the robe on, and I did a cameo. So therefore, when it was put into the the Green Room Awards, you have to list every single person that was in the show.
Yeah.
I did a 10-minute cameo.
Hey,
That's
you
it.
You're
in
it.
it.
You're in it.
So I got a Green Room Award.
But that show was quite spectacular because when she does a show, she doesn't do it by halves. You know, like the way it was decorated and all that, the staircase to walk up.
Well, the one thing with Finucane and Smith is that, you know, they've been all over the world.
Yep.
And I'll give you an example. For example, they went to Havana. They were invited to the Arts Festival in Havana. First Australian act to be invited. Right? And they got a letter afterwards. And they said, when they came back, I think it's in Spanish or Portuguese, I apologise to them that I don't know which one it is, but they gave me the letter. Here's a memento because I helped them raise money, etc.
Yeah.
So I gave to one of the staff and said, what does this letter actually say? And it basically said that, you know, they were one of the best acts ever to come to Cuba, and we thought you were the best act in the festival and everything like this. So I actually had it translated and gave it back to them. I said, I think you need to keep this.
Yeah.
And I think we have world-class entertainers in this city.
We do.
Definitely. And, you know, you look at something like Chunky Move Dance, which, you know, one of the original shows, Glow, it's travelling the world. You know, you look at Back to Back Theatre from Geelong, right? You know, they've got pieces which go all over the world, and
there are people with disabilities that perform in that. What an amazing company they are. Well, they just won a worldwide.
Yeah, Ibsen Award.
Yeah, just last year or the year before. Yeah,
which made them the best theatre company in the world.
Yeah,
and you think they're a little company from Geelong. Yeah, fantastic. Right?
Yeah.
So I always look at it, and I often explain to the people in the hotel, why wouldn't we help these people? Why wouldn't we sponsor them? Because look how great they are.
Yeah.
It's not hurting us in any way to be associated with them.
Yep. Now, also, what you're doing, you're opening your doors because during the Fringe Festival, you've done it a couple of times now. One's just finished.
Yeah.
But who did you do first up on?
Joel Bray.
Yeah. Who is a contemporary dance artist, most incredible performer.
Yeah, First Nations dance artist, and he did a piece in one of the guest rooms upstairs. And
how many people at a time?
I think he squashed in 20 people one night, which was probably too many, but normally it was about 15.
Which is amazing to do such a small performance.
And it was an interesting piece because when you arrived, he was in the bath. Right? Yeah. And a lot of the performance was he was naked, etc. So some people in the hotel were like, oh, he's naked. Yeah, okay. It's
the arts.
It's theatre. Let's go for it. But I think that year there were 5 Fringe Awards and he won 3.
Yeah.
And we've just done the one with Rare Bird, which they performed in the bar. And they wrote a piece about cocktail making and cocktails and what's the importance of the cocktail bartender to the public and the life of the cocktail bartender. And they performed it in the working bar as the bar was working.
Yeah. Well, and also as a lead up to it, to announce it, you actually had them in an afternoon setting, and there were a few house guests that were there in the audience as well. And that's what is so lovely, that you offer that to your guests that are staying in the hotel.
Well, also don't forget that sometimes we'll have 10 tickets and we give away 8, we've got 2. So just give it to those house guests. And they come along and we get to know them better and they know us.
Yep.
They see the performance and most of them come back and say to me, wow, we had no idea that existed in our city.
Yeah.
And it's a way of exposing people to things that they wouldn't know was there.
Yeah.
I think that's the point, is as much as we can get people to know these companies exist and the work they're doing and how good it is, it's great for everybody.
Now, they don't happen as much now because times are a lot tougher, but years ago when the big musicals would come to town, the after parties were legendary, and they were 9 times out of 10 at Sofitel. The most extraordinary night, you know, like there would be 5 different food stations serving different foods and, you know, drinks and, you know, like performances on stage and the whole decoration of it. That must have been so exciting, being involved in those big after parties.
Well, internally in the hotel, they were called Scott Brett's Productions. So there was me and my bank conference events manager, Sharon Bretts.
Right.
And they would start off with me with my coloured pencils sketching on paper, and I'd give them to Sharon, and she'd look at them and go like, oh God, another coloured picture, and then she'd interpret the party. But we did a lot where we actually we did the whole decoration, everything.
Yeah.
And we'd work with the producer. And then if we were lucky enough, I didn't have to do any drawing because they'd employ a party organiser, which was great. But they were part of the show itself. A lot of the big producers, for example, if you're in America and you opened on New York, Lion King opened in New York, and they hired a block of the city which was derelict, and they put the parts in there and had over 100 live wild animals.
Whoa.
Right? And the producer of that was Thomas Schumacher.
Yeah.
And he made a very nice comment after the party in Melbourne. He came up to me and said, I spent $1 million hiring a block in New York, and your party's better here in Melbourne.
Well, yes, because it can be actually a little bit too out of control, can't it? Where you can find it, and it's more a party atmosphere. Yeah.
But it's part of the show, of selling the show in some ways, because the press you can get out of the party is a way of extending the life of the show as well.
And word of mouth, and a lot of media people are there and celebrities are there and then talking about it as well.
Yeah.
And also good for the hotel too, isn't it? You know, like knowing that you're so involved in the arts.
Yeah. The other thing also is that someone like Andrew Lloyd Webber may not go to the theatre because he's not interested.
Well, I think he's seen it.
Yeah, but he came to the party.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like you can get a photograph of him and the cast at the party you may not have got at the theatre.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a way of capturing different elements of the show. And they're fun, and people like to have fun. We went out to the theatre, great night at the theatre, let's go and have a drink and have a party now.
Yeah, let's have a party.
Yeah, and people remember it.
Yeah. Now, over your shoulder, talking about getting a photo with Andrew Lloyd Webber, one of my all-time favourite actresses, extraordinary a woman, Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews, yes. Julie.
Hello.
Yeah.
You know, like when you sent that photo through, I went, bloody hell, he's even met Julie Andrews.
Well, it's very funny, that photo. See, we're all leaning on an angle, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, Julie leant on this angle, so we sort of had to lean on an angle as well to get in the photo. But yeah, that was actually at the theatre, and she stayed with us. I think there were like 14, 15 suitcases, and and there was a hairdressers and whatever. Lovely, lovely person, and so beautiful with the staff. So polite and everything.
She comes across that way, doesn't she?
Yeah, but it was like, oh, she's need to leave now, so they sent me upstairs. She's still packing. Next thing I got, porters in the room closing suitcases. But yeah, great. And she did a talking show at the State Theatre where she talked to the audience about her life and about with her daughter writing books for kids and things.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't sing anymore.
Yeah, well, tell people the story there that might not know it, the fact that she can't sing anymore.
Well, unfortunately, she went to have an operation on her throat, and the doctors didn't do a very good job and botched it, and she couldn't sing. Which
one of the best voices, musical theatre voices ever. Yeah.
And she was she'd got over it, and she was very positive about it, and got on with her life.
Yeah.
And realised, well, I'll talk to people, and could still be on stage, which obviously she loved.
Yeah.
And it was a complete sellout, the show.
Oh,
of
course it would be.
Yeah.
I saw her on Graham Norton's show once, and because she did one of the voices in the Trek movies, and they did a big thing of bringing her out later than everyone else, and everyone bowed, and why wouldn't you? I don't know how they were asking funny stories about, does your grandchildren, do they know who you are? And she went, there was one time she said, my children don't go on about it to the kids, and it was Christmas Day one year, and she said all of a sudden the kids were watching TV and we were having drinks and getting lunch ready and all that, and Sound of Music came on. The kids were watching, and everyone just stopped. All the adults stopped and turned and looked at me, and will I go and turn it off? That like one of the daughters said, and she went, "No, let's see if they can work out who it is." And the Hills were alive, and and all of a sudden, one of the kids turned around and looked at her, and then another one did, and all that, and she wandered over and with one of the daughters, and the daughter said, "Who do you think that is?" And they went, "Oh, don't know, but it looks like Granny." But and they just went back and watched it, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that they had no idea that she was that famous woman. Yeah.
Well, a lot of acts, if they have kids, the kids don't see the show until they're really teenagers.
Yep.
I can imagine, Mora Fellowship has kids. She doesn't allow the girls to see the show until much later.
That's because she's got nothing on in most of the show.
I think it's also looking after the kids and letting them have a normal life.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, also over your shoulder is two old guys and a hotel. What's that about?
That's a podcast, which the other old guy is Terence Murphy, who's the guest relations manager at the hotel. It's been there 37 years.
Whoa.
And so after COVID, we realised people weren't getting into Melbourne again. So let's start a podcast about Melbourne and interview some Melburnians. And we chat away about different things, ice cream shops, flower shops, trams, where you buy good noodles, right? And then we interview people and just chat away. Everybody has, rules about podcasts. They should only be 31 minutes long, etc. Some of ours stretch to 55 minutes, and don't and ah. We do lots of umming and ahhing like this.
Do you know what? I think people like to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be that formal approach to it.
No, and we do a sort of I do a bit of rough script, but Terence isn't very good with the script. Let me tell you. Terry sort of goes off of this angle. You never know where he's going on the podcast.
Yeah.
But he has a tremendous knowledge about Melbourne, about obscure facts.
Yep.
And I might mention a building or something, and then he'll tell you who designed it, when it was designed, why it was designed, and what's the art piece in the front.
Yeah.
And I look at him like, how do you know this stuff, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But it's just fun, and we do it. And surprisingly, people are listening, which you don't know. Podcasts are interesting.
They are.
Australia is one of the biggest listeners of podcasts in the world.
Oh, are we? I didn't realise that.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And I think people just like them because they're, like you said, it's like you're just listening to friends.
Yeah.
There's one in the States quite successful where it's just people having a dinner party. And they just tape it and put it up on the podcast.
That's a fun thing. Yeah. Yes. Now let's get like you're involved in so many organisations. Like Craft Victoria, you're on the board of that, and like so many that I was going to mention. And I thought, oh God, it will go on for half an hour. It will take up most of the show. Tell our audience though, what is your role now? Even though you're retired, and you were telling me about all these other organisations you're involved in. But what's happening with Accor?
Well, I retired, but not really wanting to retire completely.
Yeah.
And I was given the company a role as ambassador for the arts, and for the other Sofitels in Australia, I'm working with them to enhance their arts programs. So, for example, we've got a show going into Sofitel Gold Coast. We're talking to several hotels about their partnership agreements, and it's really just to enhance that in different areas of Australia.
Yeah.
And it's arts, culture. It's just get them involved in their communities as much as possible.
And have you done much? Because you've only just recently retired. Have you done much in that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're not doing. We keep going as much as possible.
Yeah,
but we've signed up a few agreements. And
so you didn't have a holiday when you?
I took the weekend off.
That was the wonderful thing at the party they had for you, is that they made some beautiful comments, and I've actually seen it, where you wander around and make sure everything's right, and like if there's somebody dropped a tissue or whatever, you bend down and pick it up, or clear glasses if the staff are busy. You're really hands-on. You just don't stand there with the arms folded thinking, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that? You put your roll up your sleeves and get stuck into it.
Well, look, I think if you're running a business, you need to be involved in the business. If you sit in your office all day, you don't know what's going on in the business.
Yep.
I always remember Rod Fitzroy when he was the chairman of the VRC in Flemington.
Yep.
And in a meeting once, they started talking about this pipe, and everybody's talking about it. And Rod said, no, stop everybody. You're talking about the wrong pipe. It's on the other end of the race course, and it's so-and-so and everything. And after I said, Rod, how do you know that? He said, I walked there yesterday to see it. And I thought, that to me is good business.
Yep.
I was lucky enough once to visit a big Japanese factory, and an old man showed me around. And then I found out afterwards he actually was the owner of the factory.
Wow.
And he just wandered the factory and talked to people and what it was about, etc. So I think it's get involved in your business and know what it is, and go and talk to the people. I mean, and you're actually, in a hotel, technically you're there to look after the guest. So the guest isn't in your office, the guest is in the hotel.
Out there.
So you better go out, and the guest doesn't expect to see paper on the floor, so pick it up.
and a dirty glass.
And there's no point in let's call housekeeping and they'll come. Why? Just pick it up yourself.
Yeah,
it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Clive, it's been an honour. I reckon I've known you for at least 15 years.
Oh, yes.
And more so in the last few years, we've got to know each other a little bit more. And congratulations on a spectacular career that you've had. And I can't wait to see you in another 10 years, and we'll get you back on the couch, and there'll be incredible stoes all over again.
I'll still be going.
I know you will. I know.
You will be too.
Yeah, in 10 years' time, maybe
I'll be back for the 500th show.
500th show, yeah.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much,
No,
Clive.
thank you. It's a pleasure to know you.
You've been watching me talk about the arts and with this legend, Clive Scott. And we'll be back again next week. See ya.